This may sound a little foolish, but this podcast is aptly titled A Tale of Two Englishes. You're listening to Devil Tongue on Spreaker.com. www.spreaker.com. Thank you for the love and support. Please continue to follow me on Spreaker and SoundCloud. I'm going to apologize in advance because I think my podcasts haven't been uploading to SoundCloud, but I'll work that out. You can definitely get at me, devil.tongue@gmail.com, YouTube, Skype, Facebook, and other social media platforms. A Tale of Two Englishes. Oh, and there's no co-host today, by the way. No Perfume, no Kimara Knight. It's just you and I. When I say A Tale of Two Englishes, I'm referring to, let's say, proper English versus slang terminology. Different professions have their vernacular, whether it's the medical community, whether it's law enforcement. And when it comes to code switching, it's awesome if you know how to speak certain vernaculars in certain instances. Okay, perfect example. Many of us have been to court, or maybe you will be going to court, whether you're serving on a jury or you're serving as a plaintiff or a defendant, and hopefully not necessarily as someone who's been accused of something. However, this also translates into writing letters, professional letters, business letters. And I'll give you a very simplistic example. It's one thing to use the term, let's say, criminal when you're in the courtroom, and it's another thing to say defendant. Make it a little bit more colorful, a little bit more palatable. When it comes to the medical community, I know that there are plenty of medical terms that laypersons, don't necessarily understand. If you're not a nursing student, a nurse, a physician's assistant, a doctor, what have you, you're not going to necessarily understand what a femur is. You're not going to necessarily understand what, let's say, cardiomyopathy is. I'm just throwing those terms out there, but, we refer to things that are basic in nature. The leg, the heart, the brain. And I say this because, again, when it comes to street slang, when it comes to that type of language, you can really either show your intelligence or show your foolishness, depending on the circumstance and situation, by not using certain vernacular or words in your discussion with whomever you're speaking to. You come off looking a lot smarter when you're using the proper language in the proper instance. Now, I can cite very many different examples, but let's go with one that affects all of us, because as you all know, those who have been listening to my podcast, these issues affect me as well. I talk about the issues that affect all of us. Your resume as an awesome example. Here's a key tip. If you're looking for a particular job in a particular industry, while it's smart to research that job and look at the job description as well as the qualifications, unless your resume already reflects that particular job, make sure that when you refine your resume, you put those particular keywords in there that their computer software is going to pick up. Because yes, the recruiter is going to, look over your resume and hopefully call you in for the interview. But remember, a lot of these resume mining tactics are done by computers. That's how they go from receiving over 1,000 resumes for that position to maybe just 50, and then they pick out the best of the best. It's all done simply by seeking out keywords that reflect what they are looking for. And you, if you are best suited for that position, you will also be able to speak those keywords in the interview. When an employer says, so tell me about yourself, instead of being all over the place and talking about things that are relevant, gee, I like to drive, I like to cook, you could say, well, I have a podcast and I broadcast to a varying audience on a large scale in different markets. Again, see how that sounds somewhat differently? You're listening to Devil Tongue. And this is the podcast, A Tale of Two Englishes, on Spreaker.com, www.spreaker.com. Now again, for my dedicated fans, you know, Devil Tongue is a bit all over the place. Let me just say, it's not that I'm not strong enough or well versed to do podcasts by myself. But if the podcast or the show must go on, Devil Tongue is doing what Devil Tongue has to do. I just prefer to have a co-host so we have that differing opinion, agree to agree or agree to disagree, and it works. When I can ping pong or bounce off of my co-host and we debate the topics and issues that we are discussing at that point in time. You know, when it comes to English, I am very good in English. I've actually always been very good in English, and my writing is exceptional. I am proud to declare I will pick up a dictionary, thesaurus in a heartbeat, whether it's to determine the spelling of a word or to jazz up what I'm trying to express. And I would encourage those of you who haven't done so, go to, well, in my case, I have an iPhone, go to the App Store, or, you know, just download the app for Merriam-Webster. There's other dictionaries, and they have a free version. You don't necessarily need to pay for it unless you feel that that's just a better version. I can't call it, I won't. You know, English has always been one of the hardest languages to learn because we're always coming up with new verbiage constantly. Great example. The other night on the news, they mentioned a new trend, and I do believe it's called Visco, if I'm correct. Visco Girl? Is that similar to, like, say, Valley Girl going back some 30, 40 years? Is that similar to back in the 80s, the Village look? Shout out to Greenwich Village, by the way. But, you know, I scratch and shake my head in my older, mature age, because even if it's an old trend that's being made new again, you know, it's like, okay, what is this? What is this? Why is this? What's it all about? It probably is a spin on, you know, what we used to go through with, say, the whole Valley Girl phase. I don't know for certain, but when you look in the dictionary, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you look in the dictionary for that word, you're not going to find it because it's new. Coined, brand new. And English as a challenging language, there's so many different words, you know, when it comes to synonyms, homonyms, antonyms, that they mean the same. Now, I know the definition of all three. I'm just saying, you can, this is why I stress again, picking up a thesaurus. You can say the same thing different ways, and it can make your conversation strong or weak. But such is, the language of English that we all embrace, and many of us learn to speak when we're toddlers. You're listening to Devil Tongue on Spreaker.com, www.spreaker.com, and I'm talking about, English as a dual language in a sense, because again, there's so much when it comes to the language in terms of the words that we choose and use to bolster our conversations, our speaking. I could give you a podcast that's rife with profanity, slang, sheer stupidity if you want me to put it out there. Or I could give you a podcast that is rich and fulfilling, particularly with the language that I choose to speak to you with. Now, while I'm not going to explain the origin of Devil Tongue at this point in time in this podcast, I will say it wouldn't make sense to me personally to use that name and not be able to vigorously defend it, because depending on your spiritual grounding and belief, you know that Lucifer, also known as the devil, is a very sneaky, cunning, slick individual. I mean, he was able to con Eve into eating of the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil after God explicitly told her and Adam, do not touch it. And what happened? But again, we're not, even though I'm all over the place, I'm not going there with that either. I'm just saying that I chose the name because I'm not here spewing negative energy. I'm not here telling you to be evil, malicious, or do things that are contrite. I'm actually here on the other end to encourage you to challenge yourself to be positive, proactive, motivated, energized. And don't get me wrong, we all get down as far as depression, that is. Devil Tongue's got issues. I'm not going to discuss them, at least not again in this particular podcast. But I am no different in the sense that I'm not going to say I don't have issues, because I do. And whether those issues range from financial, whether those issues range from health, whether those issues range from, I'll even say, vehicular. Unfortunately, the accident I suffered back in April, lawsuit is still pending. And to think, I can use those finances to help boost this podcast in terms of bumping it up a notch and taking it to the next level. But I digress, because again, even though I am all over the place, that's not what the focus of this particular podcast is about. It's more about just speaking proper, enunciating. Growing up, and those of you who are in the age range of, let's say, I'll say 30 to 60, you remember a time when the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, they had a lot of educational programming on television that was very beneficial and vital to the growth of toddlers. Toddlers who eventually would, go, let's say, pre-K to kindergarten, and so on and so forth. You had Sesame Street, which is still on the air. You had the Electric Company.